Welcome to
Hey,
episode. Welcome to episode 73. Got here Aryaan with me. Hey man, what's up?
what's up, buddy? Good to see you. I'm
Good to see you
excited.
too. Yeah, let's get it. So let's let the listeners and audience know a little bit about yourself. Go ahead.
Of course. My name is Aryaan Kanji. I'm a performing artist and filmmaker, creative. I kind of do a lot of things right now, just
Woot
kind of
woot.
figuring out what I'm doing in Toronto. I've been a dancer and choreographer for most of my life, but I've also loved to be on camera, both as an actor and a host. And so a lot of the work I do right now is within social media and with broadcasting. So whether that be reviewing food in the city or hosting a little performing arts showcase, I kind of do a bunch of little things, as I mentioned, just trying to see what my niche really is. But yeah, just exploring the creative industries in Toronto in as many ways as I can. I also love to travel, and that's a huge part of my creative inspiration is
Yeah,
things I
I
see around
see.
the
I see.
world.
Yeah,
Yeah, so it's a huge priority of mine to just see as much as I can of the world in the life that I live, and within that, see how much I can really create and be proud of.
yeah. Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
So let's go a bit down memory lane and tell him about like growing up, how life was, and some of the struggles and whatnot.
Yeah. Well, going down memory lane is a really interesting thing for me because I, from a very young age, found a love for performing, for being on
Yeah.
stage in a
Okay. Yeah.
live aspect, right? I know you obviously love being on stage and performing as well. The same thing goes for me. From a very young age, I started both acting and dancing, but the first love I found was dance. So when I was a kid, when I was around 6 or 7, I started taking Bollywood dance classes with Sharma, who you're very acquainted with.
Yeah.
And within that, I was training specifically in just Bollywood while also trying to find what I really loved about the craft. And one thing I really, really found as an early love was just being on stage, captivating a crowd in whatever way I could, whether that was with uh, high energy performance in dance or whether that was with storytelling and acting. I really, really just enjoyed having people react and feel through the art that I was creating.
Yeah.
And at a very young age, that was a big realization. And that realization pushed me to realize that that's what I want to continue doing with my life. Maybe not in the same platform or on the same canvas, but something I always knew I wanted to do was tell stories. And as a very physical person through dance, acting was a great outlet for that. Going around the world and doing shows like that is something I've always loved. Moving on in my life, I would say a struggle that came with that realization was trying to find my identity as a
Yeah.
creator.
Yeah.
Uh, and I think identity is a huge thing that I struggled with. It started mostly in acting, and that's kind of why I pursued dance so heavily in my early teenage years. Is because as an actor and as a performer for film, TV, theater, whatever it was, less so theater, more so film and TV, I didn't know who I was. I didn't
There's
know
like a certain type of, like certain type of conformity or something you had to fit. You didn't
exactly,
find your own like
exactly.
uniqueness.
Exactly. And in the early like 2000s and 2010s, there was a typecast for people who looked like
Yeah.
us,
Yeah.
right? It wasn't easy to be that Indian person for me because ultimately I was born in Canada. I don't look the most South Asian. In fact,
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't feel the most authentic being like a Raj on screen and then putting on an accent and putting on a show, you know?
The
So
typical norm Bollywood.
exactly. So trying to fit into that norm was something I knew I couldn't do. And ultimately, that made me question everything I was doing. I felt that I wasn't Indian enough to get casted as a brown character. I wasn't white enough to get casted as a Canadian or white character. I perhaps was Middle Eastern passing, but that's not anything that I connected to. So ultimately, like I found myself playing roles like a Muhammad or an Abdullah, and I was like, I'm not that. And there's no offense to that level of storytelling, but as South Asians, we are more complex. So then the
Yeah.
question is, Bollywood? Question mark. Do I go to India? Do I go abroad? What what is this path? But for me, ultimately, as a Canadian, I wanted to push representation in the country that I was born in. That
Of
too,
course, of
also a
course.
country, exactly, that too, also a country that has so many immigrants and so much representation to show for it, but didn't quite meet that mark. So that's why dance was super special to me, because I was dancing to the music that I grew up dancing to. I was idolizing the actors and the characters that I grew up watching. And so with dance, that was my form of storytelling to ultimately beat that struggle of my identity crisis as a kid. Um, so that's why dance was a huge thing for me. But dance, as any other physical activity, is in itself a struggle as well. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
staying healthy, staying committed, not getting fatigued. And as the years went on, I took dance more and more and more seriously. That being said, in high school, I was in an arts intensive drama program, which was allowing me to really learn and hone my skills in theater.
Drama focus? Drama
Yes,
focus?
drama focused program. So I was honing my skills in theater, but ultimately on the Shamuk side of things, I was progressing to the professional level, and eventually
Becoming a teacher. Yeah.
becoming a teacher, becoming one of your teachers. Yeah, so that's where me and you kind of met, in dance, and it was amazing. It was the most fulfilling feeling in the world teaching dance. It ultimately made me feel that I had a purpose, and I know a lot of guests on your shows have talked about
Yeah,
finding
yeah,
purpose
yeah,
in life. So teaching was something that I realized I never wanted to let go of. But
yeah.
that being said, I went on it. I went into teaching really, really intensively. And right at the peak of my teaching, where I started to grow into this more senior, seasoned instructor, the pandemic hit. And the
Yeah,
pandemic had struggles for
bummer.
everyone, right?
Yeah.
But the pandemic struggles for me weren't that I wasn't able to access a dance studio, weren't that I couldn't do what I love to do. I'm blessed enough to say that I had a house that allowed me to explore my creative side through dance. But my struggle was a little bit unique in the sense that it was, I overdid what I loved and I stopped
Burnout.
loving it. Yeah. So the struggle was, it came to a point during COVID that it wasn't about money. It wasn't about not being able to dance. It was the fact that, like, I was taking on way too much. There was a point, Ivan, for a few months where I was teaching 6 to 7 days a week, whether that was a private class, a group class, a class with Shama, choreographing something for a show. It was a lot. And so after about a year of dancing in the pandemic, I realized, like, I need a break. I am over fatigued. I am burnt out. I cannot do this right now. And so I stopped dancing for a year.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to tell now because I'm back in it, but I I I dropped it for a bit, and I didn't um distance myself from the craft. In fact, I actually got hired to be a manager at a dance studio. So I was still working very closely with dancers, but I
Oh,
wasn't
but like in different capacity.
exactly. I wasn't teaching, I wasn't dancing, I wasn't training. I would maybe take one class here or there, but very rarely. And ultimately, it led to a lot of struggle, and it threw me into this place where there was a lot of things happening to me within my family. I had experienced a lot of death and illness and this and that, and I didn't have anything to push me through it. um, Ultimately, I fell in love with podcasting and media and radio and broadcasting because it gave me an outlet to tell the story that I wanted to tell. But that is ultimately because I lost touch with my true form of storytelling, which was dance. So in 2023, last year, at the beginning of the year, I started teaching again. I started training again. I started making videos. I started really honing who I was as a child, but in an elevated way, in a way that was different, in a way that was more authentic to me, in a way that wasn't just this archetypal Bollywood phase that I did for so many years. And there's no offense to any of that. It was the best, some of the best times of my life. But when you dance consistently to the same style, perform every summer for 12 years, it gets exhausting, right? So now I feel like I'm starting to really grow into my own skin as a dancer, as a performer, and I'm able to amalgamate that with all of the things that I started doing when I didn't have dance. So it's this beautiful harmony of just a whole bunch of things.
Oh, wow. So what was that pinnacle moment or the moment where you had that struggle of your identity, finding your identity, and how did you
Oh,
overcome it?
ultimately I'm still struggling with that, and I think it's something I will continue to struggle with as a creative because the world is ever so changing. um, Art is ever so changing. In fact, your own inspiration consistently is
Yeah.
altering, right? Whatever you see in the world is how you form the structure of your storytelling. And
Yeah, even
so
like how you want it to look like might look
exactly,
dif something right now
exactly,
would look something like simple, but like 5 years down the line, it could flip on its head like completely different.
100%. And there's so many projects that you can't follow through with because ultimately you won't get the result you want, the result that you have in your head. But I've learned to really see that that's not a bad thing. And that I think that's overcoming the real struggle of the identity crisis, is that I may have an idea of who I want to be, but it's not about getting there. Oh, this is so kumbaya and cheesy. It's about the journey and not the destination. It truly
Oh,
is, though. It
yeah,
truly is.
yeah.
Where I see myself in 5 years is definitely an important goal and a milestone to work towards, but I may alter that journey as I go through it. And that is amazing because that's where the beautiful things come out from, right? When I started as a professional performer with Shamuk, I
Yeah.
may have seen myself teaching, but I ultimately saw myself performing around the world until there was a point where I was like, no, I'm tired of this. I If I do one more wedding or one more gala or one more like medical show, like I actually will go crazy. And so teaching opened up a whole new world for me. It showed me the horizons that I could reach as a dancer in ways I didn't know I could. And so that's why I consistently do that now. And it ultimately was a realization that came out of the journey of just dance.
So when you said 7 years old, you realized that that's when you wanted to get into dance, or how
I
did you
think
want to get into what you're doing? What did you study?
so. I studied media production at
Okay.
TMU, which ultimately wasn't my first choice either. The pandemic
Oh,
pushed me
okay.
into that choice. So I studied in high school. I was in an arts intensive drama program, as I mentioned, and that was setting me up to get to an acting program because
Yeah, yeah.
ultimately I wanted to change representation, but I wanted to act. I wanted to be in front of the camera, and dancers sadly don't have the exposure that I wanted. So anyways, I was working up to getting into the acting program at TMU. I auditioned, I did everything, got into a few acting programs. I was actually waitlisted for the program, but I was accepted a few months later. But in the process, my backup choice at TMU was RTA Media Production, which was a world renowned program nationwide. It's a very, very, very top tier program. And after going through the program, I can definitely agree with that. Um, but the pandemic had hit, and I realized that acting on Zoom would have been a nightmare. I didn't want to read plays and write essays because that's what the acting program had developed into. I wanted to see how I could learn the technology, learn how to produce my own work so that from home I could be doing that. So my first year of university was completely online. It was completely from my bedroom, and it was just me learning about audio, about single camera production, multi-camera production, storytelling, script writing, content scheduling, all of these things
At
um,
home.
at home,
Oh my
which
god.
I wouldn't have gotten from an acting program. In
No.
fact, I had more opportunities to act in my own productions because I had the expertise and now the knowledge of creating my own work. So
Ah, now
it's
you
a
can use that to go.
exactly, it's a result of the journey and a different choice I made on the path that I wasn't expecting. Yeah,
That's sick.
yeah.
That's sick. That's sick.
Yeah, and I think in addition to that, it's important to also like when we're talking about overcoming these struggles and
Yeah.
having these unexpected things come up. Um, I used to fear the unexpected so much because there was always so much like formula in my life, and I know like many guests that you've had, especially that are South Asian, have talked about the whole like there's different routes.
Yeah, yeah.
As a South Asian child, you can be like one of five things: a doctor, a lawyer, engineer, an accountant, or a failure. But for me, it was never really about any of those five things. If I was to become a doctor, I think I would want an artistic escape regardless. So I don't think this is a career thing for me. I think
No,
this is me pursuing something that's deep inside of me, and it's scary. So I guess
of
the other
course.
struggle that I want to talk to you about is just that like it's okay to have fear, and it's okay to have like a lot of uncertainties about your
Yeah.
journey because uncertainties unlock the doors that you never thought would open for you. And
Unlock
so
your
as
potential.
those doors open, you just put that on a shirt. Is that what you said?
Ah,
Put
yeah.
that on a shirt. Yeah, so when those doors open, you just have to walk through them with open arms. Put that on the back of the shirt. Put that on the back.
Oh.
I'm dead. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's go. Let's make the t-shirt now.
Awesome. Yeah.
In your own words, what would you say limitless means to you?
Wow. So there's so many ways of putting limitless for me
Mm,
because I'm going through a huge postgraduate change right now.
mm,
I'll start with from the dance and the performing aspect of my life, what limitless really means to me.
okay.
Because ultimately, there's a few things. And the part that I would say applies to the entire aspect of my life is limitless means endless growth. Limitless means constantly evolving, learning new techniques, styles, pushing you beyond your current abilities. It's that ongoing journey, as I mentioned, of improvement, of refinement, of working towards something that you may not know what it exactly looks like, but you're working towards something because you know that your potential knows no bounds. And so that endless growth and believing in the potential that you have is rewarding. It's difficult, but it's challenges you in the right ways, and it leads to productivity, it leads to results, and ultimately it all is reflective of what it is to be limitless. And so when I'm talking about growth as a dancer, there's the growth as a creative. There's
Yeah.
boundless creativity, um, it signifying sort of the infinite possibilities for expression, the infinite possibilities for innovation within my movement, within my choreography, within my artistic vision for a project. But then it also talks about, like, as a limitless thinker, the emotional freedom that you get from the creative industries. A dance specifically allows you to express emotions and stories with no constraints, right? The only constraints is if you injure yourself in the process. But it's freedom to communicate complex feelings and narratives through your body, regardless of what your body looks like,
Yeah.
regardless of what body
Or
you were
what it
given,
can do. Yeah.
right? I think for you as a dancer, like, I think you should shed some light on what dance really means to you, because it's truly emotionally freeing, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. For me, okay. So for me, with Krishna, I think he really went above and beyond.
Yeah.
Shout out to Krishna.
Yes.
Uh, like even though I can do some of the movements, he would like adapt it and somehow like just mix me into with the crowd, and it would be like showcasing your emotions. You don't have to have the perfect moves or anything, but like even with like your facial expressions, you could
Yeah.
still show that you're a good. It doesn't even have to be a good dancer or a bad dancer, just like showing what you're
Exactly.
passionate
There's
about.
truly no such thing. And Ivan, you nail that head bob every time. Like, I could never. I
Oh,
have.
speaking of identity, it's
Yeah.
Ivan, bro.
Oh, it's Yvonne.
No.
Sorry. I was watching your previous episodes and I heard some Ivan. So, anyways, Yvonne. Okay. Okay. Awesome. Yeah. So, yeah. You. I was gonna say, Yvonne, you nail the head bob every time. So keep it up. Keep it up. But yes, and then I would say, like, from a creative perspective, apart from dance, limitless is to me a synonym for fearlessness. It's a really tough, um, I would say, barrier to life is just stopping yourself because of a fear. But really embracing a limitless mindset also goes hand in hand with embracing, like, little aspects of fearlessness in your life. Dancing without fear of judgment, playing a character that you thought you had nothing to do with or nothing in common with, but then ultimately learning about that and realizing that you can do this. Um, Being fearless of failure, because failure is so important. Anything I do, I would say, is a little bit risky. I take quite a few risks, whether it's through my dance, teaching a class that might putting a few moves in that might really challenge my students, with the fear that I may never get those students back again.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, but yeah, like, really taking risks, performing in whatever job you may have with confidence, with passion, really thinking that you know what you know and being proud of that, and ultimately that will unlock the capacity to learn more. Because if you're so scared, of just trying with what you already know about something. Like, you know what skydiving looks like. You know when you jump out of a plane, you're going to be descending however many feet to the ground. You know that. But now, if you don't get past the part you know, how will you learn how amazing or maybe not amazing or fulfilling or
Put
maybe
it to
not
the
fulfilling
action.
the feeling really is, right?
Put it to the action, man.
Yeah,
Put
so
it to the
putting it
action.
into action is limitless for sure.
Put it into action.
Yeah.
Amazing. So how can our listeners or audience connect with you if you want? They want to know more about your journey or they want to
Yeah.
follow your journey?
Yeah, so I'm very vocal about my journey, and I like to be as authentic as possible with what's going on in my life and how that's feeling, whether that's traveling to a new place or doing a performance or whatever it may be, trying new food through my Instagram. So that's where I would say I'm the most authentic about my journey and what's really happening. So my Instagram is Aryaan Kanji, ARYAANKANJI. Same goes for TikTok. I do like to post a lot, but you'll see a lot more just me like goofing off on TikTok. Same ARYAANKANJI. I'm not as active anymore on YouTube, but I did also have a YouTube channel with my full name. But if you want to come and dance with me, try out any of my classes. I currently teach classes at Dance Life X Center, which is at 619 Yonge Street in Toronto. You can check out all of the information about classes at dancelifex.com or on their Instagram at dancelifex. I'm always teaching pop ups, so if Dance Life X doesn't work for you, you can try to find through my Instagram where else I'll be teaching or where else I'll be performing. Anywhere else, not really. My podcast isn't active anymore, but it was sports related. If you want to check
Yeah,
that out,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
called the
So
1-2 Punch. It was a really
yeah,
fun
on two
time.
punch. Yeah.
But we don't really work on that one too much right now. There's a lot coming up. But one project that I would really, really appreciate you checking out is the Starving Artist series, which is a series that I wrote, directed, and produced for my university thesis, and we're looking to develop it more. But it was a documentary series focused predominantly on the intersection of food and art, how artists are driven by their
Ooh,
identity, how what they create is affected by the food that they ate growing up. So, how do we learn about people from different parts of the world and their identities? Well, we're doing that through the perspective of food and ultimately how it affects their end goal, which is being an artist. Yeah.
cool, man. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Have an
Thank you so much
amazing
for
day.
having me, Yvonne, bro.